Buongiorno, good morning everyone. This is Lucrezia, your local guide in Venice. Today I'm in the north of the city, in Cannaregio district. More precisely, in one of the most important parts of the city, is to say the Jewish Quarter, as you can read up here. Behind me you can see the main square of the Jewish Quarter, which is also simply known in Venice as the Jewish Ghetto. Many people think that the word ghetto has just a negative connotation, and in fact it's still used often today to refer to an isolated area of a city where minorities live. But actually the word ghetto is a word of Venetian origins. It comes in fact from the word getto, because in this area of the city, before the foundation of the Jewish Quarter, there were actually copper foundries. They were moved from this area of the city to the east end of Venice, simply because the open fires were too dangerous. And only in 1516, the first Jewish quarter in the world, the Venetian ghetto, was founded. Consider that by the 15th century, expulsions of Jewish people from other European countries had already begun. Therefore, a sort of mass exodus began, and many of them came here in Venice, simply because the Venetian government was one of the few in Europe still accepting Jewish people. Of course, the fact of allowing Jewish people to live in Venice had one catch. In fact, having them here meant to have a lot of privileges for the Venetian government. In fact, Jewish people in Venice were not allowed to own estates. They could be, though, merchants, doctors, and they could practice those jobs that Venetian Christians usually could not. For example, they could also own pawn shops. That's, for example, one of the reasons why they were always accepted here in Venice, even though, of course, with many restrictions. By the 16th century, the community of Jewish people here in Venice had grown a lot. Consider that there were about 5,000 people living in this area. Because in fact, although Jewish people was allowed here in town, they were forced to live in this specific area of the city. There were gates at its entrance that were closed at night, so basically they were confined in this area, and this was the only place where they could live. But as I mentioned before, the Jewish population of Venice had grown too much. Therefore, the space in this area very soon was not enough anymore. And the Venetians decided, therefore, to start splitting the biggest apartments into smaller ones in order to give more people the chance to live here. And in fact, although in Venice usually the buildings have 3 or 4 or sometimes 5 stories, in the Jewish Quarter you can still see today the tallest building in Venice. Sometimes they have in fact 6, 7 or 8 floors, and that's why Venetians still call them the Venetian skyscrapers. Jewish people from all over Europe moved here, and they managed to find a way to cohabit in this very small area of the city. Today there are still 5 synagogues in town, and the 3 of them are still active. Although from the outside they look very similar to one another, on the inside they are very different. And this is due to the fact that each Jewish population had its own tradition. Some of them came from the west, some others came from the east, and they were always competing to try to have the most beautiful synagogue in this area of Venice. Today this area is really densely populated, and it's still very important for the Jewish community of the city. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell notification icon so you won't miss any new video. And if you're visiting Venice and you would like to know more about this special area of the city, make sure to visit www.secretvenicetour.com to see the tours that I offer. Ciao!